Okay guys, we are here to do the worksheet on Hoover's self-reliance. Before we get started on actually reading the document, I want to take a peek first at what we know. So we've got Hoover here. What political party is Hoover? He is a Republican. What kind of a government structure does he believe in? He believes in strong state government and a weak federal government. And what role does Hoover think the government should play in the economy? And that is hands off. So now that we've got that kind of background, I want us to look at the questions that we're going to answer. How did Hoover believe the U.S. should handle the problems of the Depression? What role did Hoover believe the government should play? Why do you think he had this view? And how did the voters respond to this? All right, let's read the background first. When Hoover took office, the unemployment rate was 4%. When he left office, it was 23.6%. That is an incredible increase. During the early days of the Great Depression, Hoover launched the largest public works projects up until his time, but he continued to believe that the problems of poverty and unemployment were best left to the voluntary organization and community service. He feared that the federal relief programs would undermine individual character by making recipients dependent on the government. He did not recognize that the sheer size of the nation's economic problems had made the concept of rugged individualism meaningless. We had to rely on each other. We were in this together. So the two documents that we have here, first we have the State of the Union, and then we have a press release in 1931 from Hoover. So let's first read document 1. Economic depression cannot be cured by the legislative action or executive pronouncement. Economic wounds must be healed by the action of the cells of the economic body, which were the producers and the consumers themselves. So that's the answer to number 1 right there. Recovery can be expedited or sped up, and its effects be mitigated by cooperative action. That cooperation requires that every individual should maintain his self-reliance, that each and every one should search for methods of improving his business or service, that each should seek to assist his neighbors who may be less fortunate, and that each industry should assist its own employees, and that each community and each state should assume its full responsibility for organization of employment and relief of distress. That's your answer to number 2. He says the government shouldn't be involved. In fact, it should be the people fixing these problems. They should do that on their own, be self-reliant. Let's look at the next document. My own conviction is strongly that if we break down this sense of responsibility of individual generosity to individual and mutual self-help in the country in times of national difficulty, and if we start appropriations of this character, we have not only impaired something infinitely valuable in the life of the American people, but we have struck at the roots of self-government. Once this has happened, it is not the cost of a few millions, but we are in the abyss of self-reliance in the future upon our government charity in some form or another. So that's your answer to number 3. He says, if we do this once, we set a precedent for the future. And we cannot allow for that to happen. And how do you think the voters responded? Well, we know that Hoover doesn't get elected to a second term, so they responded to this by not reelecting him. And they responded to this that way because it wasn't working. In fact, it was getting worse. It wasn't getting better. As you read through this and you answer the questions, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me.